Street. But let's focus now on what we're seeing in the Middle East, because this is the fourth day of the strikes and the military action between Israel and the United States and Iran. And really what we have seen is the expansion of these airstrikes, not just to the countries that are involved here, but also Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and things along those lines. We want to bring in retired Army Major Mike Lyons, an expert on what is going on over there. Mike, we were just talking off camera. You said something very interesting, that you think at this point Iran may try to sort of, I don't want to say wait it out, but stretch this out as far as they can, which is an interesting strategy. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that's their best course of action. If they could do one or two things, they could just decide to do a complete empty the tank and try to send as many missiles at Israel and at the United States bases, as well as now other Arab countries there. But I believe that they recognize that the United States has tremendous capability. So what they'll try to do is win what I'll call a war of attrition in the air. Now, we've never seen something like this historically. First of all, we've never seen something, from an air power perspective, just given the fact that it's trying to do somewhat of a regime change. But we all understand war of attrition on the ground. It's Russia, Ukraine. It's two countries kind of grinding it out there and just trying to trading one or the other. It's important for the Iranians to try to take as many interceptors out, make the United States and Israel use up air defense systems in order to run out, so to speak. And then that gives Iran some left over. If they have 200 or 300 left over, then we're at somewhat of a precarious position.
And as we talk about what is actually happening on the ground and in the air in Iran and in some of the neighboring countries, the Arab countries nearby, this is not just Iran launching these defensive strikes back into Israel, Tel Aviv. What we saw this morning, and we have a live picture in ELC1 right here, this is Beirut. This is right there in Lebanon, where they're targeting so-called, Israel is targeting so-called Hezbollah targets. So really, this has become very much a regional conflict. Does that surprise you that it's sort of spread outside of just these two or three countries at this point?
I think Iran miscalculated by attacking those other countries, thinking that they would stop and not align with the United States and Israel, but it looks like they're going to join the coalition now. Israel attacking into Lebanon, those are Hezbollah targets. One of the concerns we have is the activation of the proxies in the region, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and these organizations that can wreak somewhat of a havoc and cause the United States and Israel to have to take military assets and focus on them. So I think that's why you're seeing Israel go after there. But for all practical purposes, Israel's been fighting this war since October 7th. I mean, right. This is, that was their Pearl Harbor. This their World War II. And they've been doing that right now. And now it's to the point where, if you make the same analogies to today, whereas the Japanese attacked the United States and we're done 3 years later, it's almost the same thing with Iran now. Iran being the headmaster of all of the organizations, the terrorist organizations that were attacking Israel. And now it looks like Iran is going to fall as well.
And can Iran sustain this multi-front retaliation?
Well, the expectation is that they can for a while. Taking out their Navy was important. That's been done yesterday, as we saw from the Secretary of Defense and the chairman. But they won't be able to sustain very long. The question is, what do? They can't really convert to asymmetric warfare because we don't have troops on the ground there. There's no invasion force. The army's nowhere in sight. They can decide that they can want to continue to take the pummeling, but we'll go after as many military targets as we can possibly find in order to make sure that they don't have that capability. At some point, the infrastructure inside the country has to crumble. Tehran already has a water problem as it exists. There's uprisings in the streets. 90 million people is a lot. This is a big deal. So I'm sure Israel is trying to work on some new leadership going forward.
That's when you I've seen some videos on social media where they kind of cut out the land size of Iran and they paste it over different parts of the United States, where people who aren't familiar with the geography of the region or just the size of Iran, I mean, it's a big country, 90 million. I mean, this is not something where, you take out one big city and everything sort of folds. I mean, it's a big country, a lot of different politics going on. So when you talk about changing a regime or a regime falling, it's more complicated than just a couple weeks, right? I mean, this is
Yeah,
something
yeah,
that
no question. And culturally, Iran are Persians, and they have a long history in civilization going back to the 700s, and major contributions to the civilization of mankind. It's they don't consider themselves Arabs, but they're also somewhat tribal. You go to the southern part of Iran, where it's close to Iraq. You have Kurdish tribes that are down there that are also part of the geography. So, part of this country was carved after the First World War in that and how the Middle East was kind of carved out. But you can't escape the tribes that exist and how people feel about their individual local areas as opposed to the whole country in itself.
you sort of touched on this before, but do you feel like Gulf states are being forced to pick a side at this point?
No, I do. And I think that they're siding with the United States and Israel, which is going to be a good thing if once this is over, the Abraham Accords can get restarted again. Seeing a formal peace agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia would be as historic as anything. I think that this was a situation that had to be taken care of. This war was inevitable at some point. Israel was not going to let the Iranians have a bomb on any level. It would have caused a tremendous arms race within the Middle East. The Saudis would have wanted one, the Egyptians as well. But I do think that this coalition that they'll contain, when you connect people first on a fight in a military aspect, it's going to be then easier to connect them politically.
And again, just in case someone's just tuning in, we're talking to retired Army Major Mike Lyons. Mike, I'm sure it's a busy day for you. A lot of people calling, asking about your expertise, but I hope to ask you a couple more questions here just because I think it's so important. It does seem right now that Iran is defiance is the answer. Defiance and not diplomacy at this moment is the answer that they're at least portraying right now.
Yeah, I think so. And I think they're taking a page out of Saddam Hussein's book, but we've already taken out the leadership. And so it's important that Israel try to find a few Revolutionary Guard leaders or somebody in the country that has some level of legitimacy that wants to make a deal, using Donald Trump's words, and will agree to this conditions of no nuclear enrichment, and will agree to the ballistic missile program being scrapped, and the things that will ensure peace within the region.
Yeah.
But if they don't find that person, they're just going to continue to pound away at the military targets and really take any capability away from them whatsoever.
That it's very interesting what you just said, because we heard the same thing from a man who was involved in many Republican government administrations before. John Bolton, the former ambassador, said essentially, if you don't find somebody to work with in the country, there's not going to be an end in sight. You can't hand people freedom, so to speak, on a platform. They have to kind of come get it and embrace it and take control of it. And with so much uncertainty at the top, that's got to happen. I mean, you've got to have some kind of new partner
Right.
at the top to make this all work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the issue in Iraq, the mistakes we made there to try to import democracy just didn't work. If you remember back then, people had purple thumbs because they voted. Well, one thing about the Middle East, there's a retribution and a revenge attitude that exists, unfortunately, in that culture, and that just did not cause we didn't get the kind of result there that we thought. And so we can't necessarily think we're going to import freedom, like to your point, or democracy. It has to come organically for whatever that country wants to do. And what the United States can do is use containment if we can't find the right leaders to take over.
It's certainly no easy road on that one for sure. And Mike, just sort of wrapping up here, how long before Congress tries to rein this in, or do you see that as an actual possibility, or is this just going to the Trump administration and the president just going to kind of press forward until maybe a Supreme Court decision or something along those lines?
Well, I think the president has 60 days based on the War Powers Act. And although Rubio said it was unconstitutional, every president has abided by it since it was put in place. It was put in place for a reason. because it was put in place to basically allow a president to go to war, but a president can't stay at war. So they have the power of the purse. After 60 days, they could stop funding any of the additional monies that are going to be needed for it. The fact that both Congresses, both houses are Republicans should help the president, but there are some Republicans who've got concerns about it. I don't think this is a forever war. In fact, it's stopping a forever war. Iran's been at war with us for the last 47 years. And so I think that that's just kind of the reverse. So all of the the things that people are talking about right now just don't apply. It's not the same thing. This is not a president that wants to stay in Iran for anytime soon. But again, to your point, I think that they're going to be on the sidelines at least for 60 days until the president can figure it out.
And lastly, one of the biggest differences in any global conflict or anything that happens really is social media. In that, in these previous wars, you sort of are reliant on the mainstream media to show you the pictures. In these conflicts, where someone might say, "Oh, those were 1,000 military combatants who were killed," social media video on the ground might show you something different. That maybe there are civilians involved in schools and et cetera, et cetera. And this is one of the first times that some of these recent polls have shown that the American public isn't necessarily behind these strikes, or that the public sentiment at this point isn't there, unlike after 9/11 when you have an Iraq war and there was this sort of support that happens. That's got to be at least in the back of the minds of the administration, knowing that public sentiment on this could turn pretty quick.
Yeah, it's a great point. And the fact that we don't have reporters embedded in these military units like we had in Iraq in 2003 and all along the way. As an air war, you're not putting reporters in pilot seats and flying them over. And so we're going to be relying on what comes out of the Department of War. But I think that this could be an opportunity for the Iranian citizens to use their internet and use social media and get information out. Starlink and the what Elon Musk has provided, I think that could take off as well. But again, you're right. This thing could be an accelerant in a very bad way. As the message gets out, things go viral, and that's why messaging is so important when it comes to conducting your warfare today. The information space is a dangerous place, and I think unfortunately military people find that out the hard way.
We didn't even get into the whole cyber attack kind of element of it, of a retaliation. Mike, thank you so much. Retired Army Major Mike Lyons, so appreciative of your insight here. Always a great conversation. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.